So you've probably heard the name Dholera. Is this ambitious new smart city a truly groundbreaking investment, or is it all just hype? Well, today we're going to dig in and find out.
Okay, wow. Gurgaon and Noida combined for jobs with the planning of Singapore? That is a seriously bold promise. And that's exactly what Dholera is aiming for. It's this massive new city being built from scratch in Gujarat. The idea is so big, you can't really ignore it. But the real question is, what does that actually mean on the ground?
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the big promise and the growth opportunity. Then, we've got to talk about the delays, the doubts, and yes, even the scams. After that, we'll get into a guide for smart investing. And finally, we'll look at the long-term 15-year horizon.
So first up, the bold promise. What exactly is Dholera? Well, imagine a planned city stretching over 1,500 square kilometers. To put that in perspective, that's about the size of Delhi. And it's being designed from day one to be this global hub for high-tech manufacturing. And this isn't about just, adding a new neighborhood to an old city. Nope. The plan here is to create a perfectly planned metropolis from the ground up. The infrastructure is meant to be future-proof. Get this, they're planning dig-free roads. That means they have these dedicated underground corridors for all the utilities, water, electricity, internet, so they never have to tear up the streets for repairs. Everything, and I mean everything, is being mapped out for the next 100 years. Okay, so with a vision that big, it's no surprise it's attracted a ton of investment, especially from folks in saturated markets like Delhi NCR because, well, they've seen this movie before. So let's look at the two main reasons why they're paying such close attention. The first big reason, affordability. And the difference here is just wild. Take a mature market like Gurgaon. A pretty standard 200 square yard residential plot there, that could easily set you back 4 crore rupees. I mean, that price is almost everyone out of the market. Now hold on to your hats. Contrast that with Dholera. A plot of the exact same size today costs around 16 lakh. That staggering difference in the entry cost is what's opening the door for so many more people to even consider investing. And that huge price difference leads us right to the second reason, the potential for growth. Look, a mature market like Gurgaon is safe, it's steady. You'll get predictable returns. But a greenfield city like Dholera, that's a whole different ballgame. It presents this rare chance for exponential growth. It's basically the same kind of opportunity that early investors saw in Gurgaon, 40 years ago.
All right, but it hasn't all been sunshine and roses, not by a long shot. The project's been around for over a decade, and that long timeline has, understandably, led to some really serious questions. Time for a reality check. This is the big one, right? If Dholera is so amazing, why has it taken so darn long? It's a totally fair question. A lot of people hear Dholera and just think of a project that's been stuck in limbo for almost 20 years. But to really get it, we need to look at the actual timeline. So take a look at this. The first 5 years, from 2012 to 2017, were just for design and planning. And this wasn't just any firm, it was the same one that designed Dubai's Palm Jumeirah. The real, on-the-ground, physical development has only seriously picked up speed in the last few years, especially with big things like the Expressway and the Tata plant getting the green light. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. You've probably heard whispers or even seen headlines about scams. So, is Dholera a scam? It's absolutely crucial we talk about this, so you can tell the difference between the actual project and the fraudsters trying to take advantage of the hype. Here's the most important thing you need to understand. The official government-led project itself is not the scam. But because the name Dholera is so well known, it's been hijacked by shady operators running what are basically MLM schemes. Look, if anyone ever promises you crazy high monthly returns on an empty plot of land, like 10% a month, that is a massive flashing red flag. It's just not possible. All right, so let's shift gears. If you are thinking about Dholera, how do you do it smartly and avoid all those pitfalls? Well, the first step is to really understand the lay of the land, because not all parts of the project are created equal. See, it's not just one giant construction site. The whole thing is split into 2 very different zones. You've got the greenfield zone, which is being built from absolute scratch, and then you have the brownfield zone, where they're upgrading areas that already exist. And knowing the difference between these two is absolutely critical if you're an investor. Think of the greenfield zone as the really long-term play. You're basically buying into a future plan, where land is pooled and will be developed much later.
But in the brownfield zone, they call it the definite zone, you can actually buy a physical plot of land and get possession of it today, because that's where the existing infrastructure is being upgraded right now. So, what's the actual playbook here? We've put together a simple 5-point checklist. Number 1, you need a 5+ year horizon. This is not a short-term flip. 2, focus on strategic locations like near the new airport. 3, look for fully amenitized townships because they'll have better resale value. 4, consider at least a 200 square yard plot. Why? To account for loading, which is just the space for shared stuff like parks and roads. And finally, number 5, and this is the big one, avoid any scheme that promises impossibly high monthly returns. This is about being patient and strategic, not getting rich quick. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most important point, managing your expectations. You have to understand, Dholera is a marathon, not a sprint. This isn't a city that's going to be finished next year, or even the year after that.
So let's look at the timeline. By 2027, we should see the international airport fully up and running. By 2028, Tata's massive semiconductor plant and all its partner companies are expected to be operational. By 2030, Phase 1 should be complete, and you'll actually see the shape of a city emerge, with maybe 1.5 lakh people working there. But the full vision, a completely developed city, we're probably looking at 2040 for that.
And the jobs are the real key here. We're talking over 100,000 direct and indirect jobs just from the Tata plant. Tens of thousands more from companies like Renew Power. Don't underestimate this. The arrival of these huge employers, that's the engine that will drive everything. Jobs bring people, and people create the real sustainable demand for housing and real estate. So, when you boil it all down, Dholera is a classic trade-off, isn't it? Getting in on the ground floor means you need patience, you need a long-term vision, and you have to be crystal clear on the risks. And that leaves us with the big question. Is pioneering a future city like this a massive risk, or is it a once-in-a-generation reward? That's the question you have to answer.